Okay, well, welcome to Module 3. So in the first module, obviously, just introduction to the course. Hopefully you've done the second module, or you should have because they're closed now and you missed the deadline. But the second module is about getting involved on campus, and we're going to kind of continue that theme and really focus on actually a quite important topic, especially for biology majors, and that's essentially getting involved in undergraduate research. So many of you might have thought about doing this, many of you maybe have already done this, and many of you maybe don't know where to start or why you should think about it. So my goal for today is to try to convince you why it is important to think about doing, to show you how you can do it and what's the best way to get involved. And then I have three short, like 3-slide presentations from undergraduates who have done research, showing you their research briefly, and then also more specifically talking about what benefits they got from the experience. Now, in the face-to-face class, I would prefer to have the students come and present it to the class themselves. Because we're online and we're doing video lectures, I'm going to have to present for them. But be aware that these are written up by the students themselves, and it does have a high impact. Okay, so we're going to focus on joining the research community at UWF and talk about how you can contribute to UWF research. And one thing you might not realize is that because we are quite a small university, we depend heavily upon our undergraduates for research. It's very important to us. And it's a great experience for undergraduates as well. So it's a win-win. It's kind of the strength of our university. So there's lots of things and studies done about undergraduate and research experiences, but in reality, it's very important as a future biologist to participate in research because and most of the time that's what you're going to be doing. Even if you're a pre-health student and you're interested in going to health professional school, you'll be involved in research on some level. All right, and so it's important to understand how biologists and other scientists conduct research. But lots of studies have been looking at, is research really that important for undergraduates, and what effects does it give the undergraduate? What outcomes do the undergraduates get? And so there's actually lots of research showing that there's many beneficial outcomes. And first of all, hands-on research cultivates scientific thinking because it's not just as simple as like a teaching lab where you have a lab notebook that tells you how to do an experiment and why you're doing it and how it should work and so on. Research really is scientific thinking. We have to develop a hypothesis, make some predictions, and test those predictions doing experimental design. And that's actually quite difficult. So you can get a lot of experience doing that. The other thing about research is that it's it can be messy sometimes. You don't get very clean results sometimes. Sometimes you don't even know what the outcomes really mean. And you have to spend a lot of time and effort trying to interpret those unexpected outcomes. Well, in reality, that's what life is like. Most of professional science or healthcare fields is not just cut and dry. It's not black or white. It takes a lot of scientific thinking, creative thinking, and interpretations to do that, which is why research is very important to get those skills. Coping with failure. So if you're involved in research, I say research is roughly 95% failure. Many times your experiments are not going to work the first time, and that's okay. That's part of research, and it really teaches you how to deal with failure. And so that's quite a good skill because at some time in your life you're going to fail at something. And you have to understand how to deal with it and then how to adjust. And that's kind of the theme of this course as well, is how do we adjust from difficulties? And then one fun thing about undergraduate research is in the teaching labs, you're typically doing very solid techniques and you're just learning basic skills. In a research lab, you might be doing brand new techniques that no one else in the world is doing. You might be testing new experimental systems or developing new things, and that's very important, and it's really fun to do. So if you are thinking about, I want to get involved in cutting edge research, I want to do something that no one else has done, I want to kind of explore my passions, undergraduate research is going to be for you, and you're going to get a great number of outcomes from it. Although I always say for all undergraduates, it's important to get involved, to do some kind of research experience. All of these are what psychologists have called desirable difficulties. And there are things throughout your undergraduate career that we do to you. So we put you in a class and make the class really hard, or we make the class very challenging in terms of critical thinking skills, or we do some kind of technique or activity that kind of puts you in a situation where it's difficult. And if you can get through those difficulties, you actually come out the other end much stronger as a student, and you have a lot more skills learned from that experience. And so maybe many of you in your life can think about some experiences you had that were difficult, but when you look back on them, you realize how much you gained from them. Those are called desirable difficulties, and undergraduate research is one of the best ways to obtain those desirable outcomes. So students who do undergraduate research typically end up having higher GPAs. They typically do better in their courses, and the students that presentations I'll show you will talk about that. They can typically do better on standardized tests, and they can critically think better than students who don't get involved in these research activities. So it's not a question of why should you get involved in undergraduate research. It's more about why shouldn't you get involved, right? It's everyone should be doing this because you get so much out of it. One important thing about getting involved with undergraduate research is you get to experience what a research lab is like. And many of you might think about, you know what a research lab is like, but maybe you've never seen one or actually met a scientist. And this is kind of a silly study, but I show it because it gets at this issue. This is a study from, I believe, the NIH, where they asked 7th graders to draw them a picture of a scientist. So what do you think of when you see a scientist? And what's interesting is the majority of students drew a white male, typically a white balding male, in a lab coat, holding some kind of flask of bubbling things, or usually in a lab coat with glasses or something like that. And what's unique about this is the majority of students drew males as scientists. And then they took these 7th graders and they had them tour different labs and meet different scientists and kind of interview and see what research labs are really like. And afterwards, they drew all sorts of different examples of what scientists are. So you can see here is a cool person, a female with not having a lab coat on, wearing jeans and casual wear. And that gender bias, where before the students drew mostly males, that gender bias went away after this study. So it was more down to about 50-50 students drawing females to males. So a lot of times getting involved in undergraduate research really will help you understand what a research lab is like and get to know whether or not biology is right for you. If you're interested in biology and maybe you're interested in research, it's really important to figure out if you like that or not before you go in as a career. If you're pre-health, there's, like I said, you also will be doing research, and many health professional schools highly value research experiences as well. And because of all those outcomes that I already specified, many health professional schools want you to have those outcomes. So they will highly encourage students to get involved in undergraduate research. So don't think that just because you're pre-health, pre-dental, pre-vet, whatever you are, that undergraduate research is a waste of your time, because all the health professional schools will highly reward you for it. It looks really good on your applications. In the medical field, there's actually a program called the MD-PhD program, and this is a joint program where you go to the school and you get your MD, and you also do research and get your PhD. And these are what you call the doctors. They have 2 doctorates essentially. These are for people who are really interested in medical research. They want to work in typically academic hospitals, research hospitals, and these are highly competitive programs. We'll talk more about these programs later in the semester, about the value of them. But if you are interested in medicine and also in research, this might be a program for you. But more importantly, all the pre-health schools highly value research because you get really strong critical thinking skill. It's very important for all health professions. You need to be able to critically think in order to properly treat patients. And many health professional schools actually, on their end, are requiring or encouraging their students to do summer research experience in between their health training or their like med school training or dental school training because of these outcomes. So heavily consider a research experience if you haven't done one yet, even if you are pre-health, because I think you'll find a lot of value in it, and many of the schools are interested in this as well. All right, so part of your homework for this module is going to be kind of in class, so you can either do this right now if you want to pause the movie and go back to your homework and do this, or you can just do it after the video is over. But essentially, I've just given you a bunch of reasons why I think undergraduate research is important for you. But I want you to think to yourself, okay? So try to think about 3 reasons why you think undergraduate research is important for your career. So based on the the student questionnaire I gave you and Module 1, what is your career goal and why do you think undergraduate research might be important for that? What outcomes do you think you might get from it? And if you're struggling to think of some, you can just say, I'm not really sure. I don't know yet. And that's okay, because I want you to kind of think about where you want to be after you graduate here and how research might be able to help you get there. So go ahead and pause and do this homework if you'd like. Otherwise, we can move on. I'm going to move on, and you can do this when the video is over. There's lots of types of research opportunities for undergraduate students, so there's a variety of ways to get involved. I just want to tell you about a few of them and show you some resources before we do the student presentations. So the best position, of course, is the paid hourly position. So this is a research technician. Typically, many labs, if they have funding or if the university provides funding, will pay a student to work in a lab. So not only can you get a research experience, but you can also get paid for it and work as a job. These are a little more rare because you do have to have a lot of money or grant money, but they are becoming more and more common. So you want to keep your eyes and ears out for emails looking for research technicians. Typically you'll see that phrase research technician, and that implies a paid position. If you can't find that, you can still do research for credit. In fact, in the biology major that you're in, you can get up to 2 credit hours of what's called a directed independent study, or a DIS. And this is when you do research for typically a semester under a faculty mentor, and you can get credits, and these credits count towards your electives. So you each have a required number of elective hours, and so your research can count towards your degree. One downside of this part of the program is that you do have to pay for those credit hours, so you are kind of paying to do research, but at least it saves you some time, and it kind of rounds out your elective credits and gives you some different experiences other than just a classroom. There are many summer research programs. I'm going to show you one from UWF that's ongoing and kind of relatively new, but there are lots of programs across the country, and these are called REU, Research Experience for Undergraduate Programs. And so if you Google REU, these are an NSF, so National Science Foundation funded programs at a variety of major research institutions like Alabama or UAB or Colorado State, very large universities. And they actually will pay for undergraduate students at smaller universities like ours to go travel to their university to do a summer research experience. You get free housing paid for. You typically get a stipend throughout the summer, so you basically get paid for the summer. And you get to spend roughly around 10 weeks at some research lab doing a research project. They're highly competitive because they're so valuable, but if you can get into them, we've had many students go to them. They're very well recognized and really makes you competitive for the next step in your career. And then the last and probably most easiest way of getting involved in research is just volunteer. So let's say you can't find a paid position. Let's say you don't want to take paid for credit and you can't get into a summer program. You can just find a faculty mentor you're interested in and ask them if you can volunteer in their lab. And many times we'll say yes. It's just as simple as that. So there are 4 different kind of avenues you can pursue to get involved with research. These shouldn't be the barrier. I'll show you some barriers to getting involved, and we'll talk about why you may not be able to find a position or how you do find a position in a second. So as I was saying, the university does have a summer research program that has just started, and in fact, here's an example. Now this, because we're in the summer right now, this is from last spring, but keep this in mind for the next summer. So summer of 2017, this program will still be there, and this is called SERP, so the Summer Undergraduate Research Program. And this is put on by the College of Science, Engineering, and Health, or what is now the College of Science and Engineering. And essentially, it pays students for 10 to 12 weeks of a research experience. You have to work roughly 20 hours in the lab per week, and you get a stipend. You get a stipend of $2,500. So it typically comes out to about $10 per hour for the summer. So you get a nice paid position, and you can get a really valuable research experience that way. So SERP is ongoing right now in the summer. It's just beginning this summer for the SERP program. But remember, next spring you're going to hear about this. You can see here the deadlines, or the applications are due in about March. So around February and March of 2017, 17, you're going to start hearing about SERP again. Keep your ears out, and that will be an option for you. All of the programs for undergraduate research are going to be housed in what's called the Office of Undergraduate Research. So we have an office that's devoted to just undergraduate research. They put on lots and lots of the programs that are available to you as students. And this is going to be your biggest, your most effective site to go visit if you're interested in any kind of research opportunity. So I'm going to take you to the site right now and show you around briefly. Okay, so this is the main site that I was just showing you, the Office of Undergraduate Research. And if you just go to uwf.edu and search in the search box undergraduate research, you'll find it. And so you'll see some news and some news highlights. Down here are some announcements, and they have so you can check these announcements. You also probably will get these through your email. And then over here on the left, if you click on student resources, you'll find an event calendar. You'll find other types of announcements. And I'm trying to find other resources. Here's some, if you click on external resources, here are some conferences and upcoming meetings and so on. And it's just a good site to explore. So if you go to the event calendar, you can see that they're right now we're in the summer, so it's SERP time. So this is the time for SERP workshops going on. And any student can actually go to these workshops. And you can see a lot of the workshops they do are about professional networking and writing and biology and so on. So very useful sites, and OUR, the Office of Undergraduate Research, is the central place that you're going to want to go to find any type of research experience. OUR provides funding for you as well, so that they can pay you for your experience. More importantly, they pay for your travel. So if you get lucky enough to travel and present at a conference, OUR will actually pay for that, and you'll see that in some of our student presentations. All right, so like I said, I have 3 short presentations by 3 students. Preferably I'd like to have them present themselves, but because we're online, it's difficult to get them here to do it. And so the first is by Tara Tuma, and Tara has just graduated. She was a senior, and she did a project in Dr. Joe Lipo's lab under nitrogen fixation and marine bacteria. And two things I want you to focus on when we do these presentations. I asked the students to focus on what benefits they got from doing a research experience. So what were some of the outcomes that they received when they were doing it? And also, how did they actually get started? So what was the first step? And you'll see that there'll be a diversity of ways that you can actually kind of get involved in this. So Tara worked on marine bacteria, and more importantly was looking at the effects of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill on marine bacteria in the Gulf of Mexico. So she had 10 different microbe samples that they purified, and of course, like all good scientists, she had positive and negative controls. And this is just a picture of some of her bacterial samples. And when you're in a microbiology lab, like Dr. Lipo's lab, you deal with a lot of plates, and this is how you grow a lot of the bacteria and fungus and so on lots of these different types of plates. And you have to have very good note-taking skills, and you have to be very careful about your data and your labeling, because you have a lot of samples to deal with, and it can be very easy to mix them up. So this was their positive control they were using, and they were looking at different nitrogen fixation rates and so on. So I told Tara, well, please mention how you got involved. And so Tara was in the bioseminar class, and if you haven't taken this class yet, you have to. It's required for your major, and essentially it's a weekly seminar in which they bring in scientific speakers, and a lot of times our faculty will also give presentations as well. So Dr. Lipo gave a seminar in bioseminar, and that really interested Tara. She was very fascinated by his ideas and what he was working on. And so you'll see this a lot. This is the best way. She basically emailed Dr. Lipo after the seminar, inquiring about his research, and scheduled a time to meet with him to discuss it. And that's the best way. If you just email someone and say, hey, I'm really interested in your research, I'd like to get involved, could we possibly meet? That way the professor can take the time to respond to you. And it's a lot easier than if you just show up to his office or her office, and they might not have time to talk with you at that moment. One other thing that she did that's really important that we recommend all students do is she actually attached to the email a cover letter, which essentially was the email. She attached her resume, just to show that she had some experience, but that she was a professional student. Essentially, she kind of knew what was expected of her and that she was prepared. And so as part of BioSkills, you are all going to have to complete a resume and make a resume. And this is one reason why I want you all to have a resume, is because it's a very important, when you do inquire for research experience, to attach a resume. It doesn't matter what's on it. It's just the fact that you have taken the time and thoughtfulness to put together a resume, and it means you're actually really serious. It's different than you just asking me, hey, can I join your lab, versus I'm really interested in your research for this reason, and here's my resume. Those are two different kind of scenarios. After she met with them, they had a discussion about how she could participate in his research. She ended up doing the research for credit, so she did a directed independent study for 2 credits. And what she did was she did it over 2 semesters. So one semester she took it for 1 credit, and the next semester she did another credit, which is a nice way. And that way you get to do research for a full year. And then after her credits were up, she actually continued to volunteer for research from the spring, and even now this summer she's doing a little bit more research. So once you get into a lab, you can really negotiate kind of how you want to do it, and volunteering is just fine. For the DIS, you roughly spend about 10 hours per week in the lab, and that's up to you and the mentor. The person who runs the lab, that's just negotiable. Always just be honest about what time you have. Some things that she got really good at was lab notebook writing. So she had a lot of plates, a lot of samples, and she had to take a lot of good notes. And at the very end of the DIS, she had to write a formal lab report. And this is kind of a big lab report about what her research was. She was funded through OUR. She got actually a grant through OUR. They will actually give you money to do your research. And every semester you'll hear about applications through email and things like that. You kind of have to write a 2-page narrative on the research that has been done. You have to write a detailed description of what you're going to do for that proposal. You have to write a budget. These are very common things that you do in science anyways. And you can get grant money. And it's not a lot, but it's very good to put on your resume that you were a recipient of a grant, even if it's from the Office of Undergraduate Research. So be aware that the research experience then starts leading to more and more different experiences that's just going to make you more and more competitive for jobs in other secondary schools in the future. The benefits that she said she got was experience working in the lab, seeing what microbiologists do. She got to really add a lot of things to her CV and resume, which made her more competitive when she graduates. She got to work side by side with a professor, and this is a great opportunity to get mentorship and guidance with a professor. It's very unique at a small university to be able to work with professors. Typically at large universities that you don't get that opportunity. So it's very important that you take advantage of it. And many graduate schools like to invite students with experience to their program. So many graduate schools, if you're going to apply to them, most of the students applying to them have a research experience, and so you have to stay competitive with them. And one other benefit she said, and this is very common among lots of undergraduate students, is that because the research she was doing was on such a basic process like nitrogen fixation, it really helped her in her classroom when they were going over nitrogen fixation in ecology. She knew all about it already. It made the content so much easier. And this is that tie-in that students who do undergraduate research typically do better in their courses. And it's not because they're smarter, and it's not because they're more serious students. It's because they're spending their time doing research, investigating content that you're going to find in the classroom anyways. And you're almost basically just like studying while you're doing research. So here are the list of things that she said she benefited from. Time management, sterilization of media, making agar plates, performing dilutions, working with bacteria, streaking bacteria for isolated colonies. And what you'll see here is many of these are very specific skills that you can then put on a resume when you apply for jobs. So you get a lot of in-house training that you would normally not get in a teaching lab. All right, the second student is Sherry Sandry. She's a pre-professional senior, a pre-professional major here in the biology department. She's a senior, and she did a research experience with Dr. Nash in his immunology lab in the fall of 2015. Now, Dr. Nash is no longer in our department or with us at the university, but he was an immunologist. And she got involved by basically talking to him during the formal immunology teaching lab. So she was in lab in a class, and just because the professors are teaching it, just chatting up the professor and talking about her interest, and he invited her to get involved with research. And so she was working with him on monitoring the effects of common veterinary anesthetics after infecting mice with a strain of the flu. So he's a virologist looking at the flu And she was interested in medicine, and this is a very um, applicable research experience for her. She learned lots of skills, and Dr. Nash worked with mice, so she got to learn a lot of the mice techniques, like how to hold mice, how to care for them, how to clean and assemble the cages, proper pipetting technique, how to deal with cells and liquid nitrogen cultures, how to autoclave and euthanize mice. Unfortunately, when you deal with mice, you sometimes have to euthanize them, especially when you're infecting them with the flu. So lots of these, again, as you'll notice, lots of these are hands-on skills that the students are learning that they can then put onto their resume and make that next step into a research career. And here are some pictures of Sherry. If you do know Sherry, you might recognize her. This is her in the hood working with mice. She's holding a mouse right there by the tail. And this is her working with liquid nitrogen where you normally store cells. So her benefit to the research is that research is necessary for graduate school. It's highly regarded by professional schools, things that we've been saying already. It really helps the students stand out. It can really help you discover their passions. So she realized that she wasn't that really into mouse research. So she kind of discovered that, yeah, I'm interested in these type of ideas and topics, but this is probably not the best lab situation for me. And it can give you the opportunity to acquire unique skills that no one else has, or not everyone else has. Her recommendations for how to get involved is do your research on research. So it's really important to know what the professors are doing. What are their research projects and why are you interested in that? And she recommends you go to the UWF website. I'm actually going to have you do this as your homework assignment, and to get to know your instructors. So it's very important to simply ask. So like in her story, she got involved because she was in a teaching lab and was talking to the professor of the teaching lab. You need to be willing to express your interest to the faculty. We love it when students tell us what they're interested in because there's lots of ways that we can help you pursue that passion. All right, and the last student is Georgia Huffman, and she is an undergraduate research in my lab actually, and she started about 1.5 years ago. And we work on a protein called HAX1. We're interested in how proteins regulate apoptosis, and so that's kind of what she's worked on. She started with me last summer, and so she's been with me for a full year now, and she's still in my lab right now. And we do a lot of cell culture. So she takes care of 1 million cells. She grows them, has to feed them different media and to grow them and things, and then use them for experiments. So she's getting a lot of the hands-on techniques and what you would find typically in like a biomedical lab, which is what my lab is really focused on. How she got involved was, again, getting to know her. I knew her. She was a good student. I knew she was interested, and I was actually, her story is a little bit reversed. I needed a student, and I knew she was interested, and so I asked her if she would join my lab. So it really just takes getting to know your teachers and letting them know you. That's important. Academic is important. Obviously, it's okay if you don't have the most perfect GPA, but you have to show that you're serious about your intention about doing research. You can do that through being a good student, or you can just do that by being responsible and and showing the professor that you're serious, that you want to take advantage of this opportunity. And things like having a resume done and submitting a resume and just expressing your interest will speak for that. So don't worry if you don't have the perfect GPA. That's not that big of a deal. And then taking advantage of opportunities. So if she would have said no when I asked her that one time, I might not have to ask her again. And so she just knew I got to take this advantage right now and try it out for at least a month or so. And she did, and she liked it so much that she stayed in the lab ever since. So you have to keep your eyes and your ears open and be aware of any opportunity and just take a risk and take it. You may even if it's not in the field of your particular interest, you still want to jump on any kind of research opportunity because that can lead to a different experience as well. A lot of the skills that she gained was presentation skills. Georgia was able to travel to the American Society of Cell Biology conference and present her research through a formal poster presentation here. And she got to travel to San Diego, California, which she's never been farther west. She hasn't been that far before. And so she got to travel, and OUR paid for her entire travel. So the whole trip was free because of the Office of Undergraduate Research. So like I said, they have a lot of money to support any activity that you're doing. She got hands-on lab experience, like many of them do. Sticking with the project and coping with failure, as I said, that's a really beneficial outcome. A lot of her experiments weren't initially working, and she just stuck with it and was able to get some results. Real world problem solving experience, possibly paid positions and grants. So she now is also working as a summer paid position, which is helping her do her research. Possibly publishing your research, where we might be close to that. We don't know yet. And then, like we've been reiterating, all of this can be added to your resume. So I hope you can see there's a lot of outcomes that are beneficial for undergraduate research. It really is important, and there's a lot of benefits to it. Okay, so those are the 3 student presentations. I hope you got to see some different stories about how they got involved, how they're benefiting both in the classroom and out of it. And I want to end this module with talking about the logistics of it. So how do you actually get involved? And then once you are involved, how do you get into a group? You know, and what are some reasons, or what are some things that will happen when you ask? So the first thing you want to do is to try and get involved, is to try and identify faculty research who you're interested in. And part of your homework is going to do that. It's going to go onto the biology website and look at the faculty members' research activities and find research activities that you're interested in. You may email that professor and ask them, hey, I'm interested in your research, I'd like to join your lab, but the professor might just say no. And it's not because you're a bad student or you're not, they don't like you. There's a lot of reasons why professors say no, and one of them is the most important, mentor availability. So if the professor is very busy for that semester, maybe they just don't have any time, maybe they already have a lot of undergraduate students in their lab, they may just not have the time to devote to you, to be fair to you, and that's why they say no. Available lab space. Sometimes there's not a space available in the lab for the student to join, and they just have to say no at that. Chances of productivity, this isn't that big of a deal. Some professors will say, well, if the student's not productive, I don't want to take them. At UWF, that's not the case. Every single faculty member here took this job because they are really interested and focused on undergraduate research. So our research programs are here for you. So be aware of that this is not an issue at UWF. And then lastly, student time availability. So if you say you're interested in research in my lab and then you say, but I work 40 hours a week and I'm taking a full class load and I really only have about an hour a week to spend doing research, more than likely we're not going to be able to take you because you just don't have the time to devote to it. So you really have to make that decision about how much time can I devote, and be honest with the mentor. So if you email someone and say, I really only have about 5 hours a week, but I would love to spend those 5 hours in your lab, we can make that work. It really just depends on the availability that you have. All right, so if you found a lab you're interested in, and so part of your homework is going to be going on the biology main website, finding someone's lab you're interested in, and finding out what they do for research. That's your first step that you want to do. You don't want to just ask any professor, because if you don't have an idea of what they're doing, they're going to take that as an insult. You have to know what their research is. When you have found that out, your best course of action is to email the professor, what we call the PI. PI stands for Principal Investigator. Or it's possible if you know some of the grad students, so sometimes the grad students of the professor will be teaching a teaching lab. And if you know one of the grad students, you might actually ask the grad student as well. Because sometimes if my grad student comes to me and says, hey, an undergrad wants to join the lab and I'll be willing to train them, you don't have to do anything, I might be really inclined to take that student because I don't really have to, all I have to do is kind of visit it once a week just to make sure everything's okay, and you're being trained and mentored by the grad student. So that can be common as well, depending on the lab. But you want to email the professor, and in your email you need to draft a professional email. And if you're not sure how to do that, I want to just walk you through it very quickly. And you want to include in your email a greeting, and it's always Dear Dr. So-and-so, it's their last name. Do not use their first name, all right? If you're not sure whether they're a doctor or not, whether they have a PhD or not, you can just say Mr., but most of the time if you're a professor of a research lab, you typically have a PhD and you want to use doctor. All right, then you want to introduce yourself. My name is Student Y. I'm a junior biology major, and my career interests are in field ecology or bird ecology or something like that. So you want to tell me who you are, because if you just say my name's so-and-so, I might not know who you are. And obviously we're assuming I don't know you personally already, which many of the faculty already know you students from class. Why does the research interest you? So you don't have to tell me everything I'm doing. So you don't need to reiterate all my research, but you need to say things like, for me, I do research on biomedical things, so diseases and things like that. So you can say, well, I'm really interested in the human body, and I'm interested in medicine, and I'm interested in learning more about how diseases are caused. And that's about sufficient for all you want to do. And then you want to give your availability. So this semester I'm taking 12 credit hours. I would love to meet with you. I'm available at these times, and I could do research, 5 hours a week or something like that. So you want to let me know ahead of time if you do have availability, because if we meet and I realize you're working full time, it might not work out that way. And then lastly, your contact info. Obviously, if you're emailing me, I have your email address. But if you have a separate email address you'd like to use, or you want to meet in person, you can give that contact information. And then lastly, just like any kind of cover letter, you want to give a salutation. And what I mean by that is a thank you for your time, sincerely, student Y, right? You want to just say thank you and then end your email. Don't just end it without at least a thank you or a sincerely, or there's other type of salutations you can do. All right, if the professor hopefully says, yes, I would love to have you, it sounds good, let's talk about it. Usually what will happen is you'll get a time to meet face-to-face if you haven't already. If you do get a meeting, definitely bring a resume. The professor may not ask for one, but you definitely want to bring one. And if you can, attach it to the email you just sent. That really tells me that you're serious. It does tell me a little bit about you as well. And then during the face-to-face meeting, you might discuss about why you're doing this. So be very explicit about how much time you can devote, be honest about that, and also what's your motivation. So many of the pre-health majors might do research because they only want to be competitive for med school. They just want to check a checkbox, and they think it's just a requirement for a good application. And although yes, it does make your application better, that's a different motivation. And a lot of times research is very difficult. And if your motivation is just to do something for the sake of doing it, a lot of times that's not a good research experience. And so many professors might ask you about what your motivation really is, and you have to really be honest about that and think about that. So I want to end with this. We've done this whole presentation about research, about how to get involved, where to find money. OUR is the place that will fund everything, and your research mentor will help you with all of that. But at the end of the day, some of you might not want to do research. It just might not be something that you want to do. And so I always want to address the issue of what if research isn't for you? What should you do? First, I want you to meet with your academic advisor or maybe your career advisor. And if you don't have a career advisor, I'm a career advisor for biology, so you can always meet with me. I'd be happy to discuss your career goals. Because really, if you're a biology major and research isn't for you, you're either a pre-health professional major, so you might not think research is appropriate if you want to be a PA. But if you want to go into some form of biology, most of the time that's going to be a research type job. And so it's important to think about, if you don't like research, do you even like biology? Is biology the field for you? And you need to have that discussion. If you are pre-health and you really don't want to do research, you really care more about people and treating people and volunteering and community engagement and things like that, then I would definitely recommend you get involved in local community events. So volunteer at local clinics or free clinics or lots of different places that also need student help, because the motto for BioSkills that I like to tell all the students, it's okay to not be in a lab, and it's okay to not do the thing that we're going to talk about today in Module 3, and maybe in Module number 7 you don't want to do that either. But at the end of the day, you have to do something, because you're all going to graduate with the same degree, and the experiences that you get outside of the classroom are going to be what separates you from other students. Okay, and so if you all had just the same degree and the same GPAs and that's it, there's no way to determine who is the better person for a job. It's what you start doing and accumulating outside the classroom that really makes you competitive for health professional schools and other types of jobs. So be aware that you do need to get involved on some level with something. And if you're really not sure how to do that or what that might entail, please come see me, come see an academic advisor, come see a mentor, someone who you can honestly talk to about what you need to do, and they will help you. The university here is probably one of the most supportive universities I've ever seen. We want you to be successful, and because of that, we will do everything we can to help you succeed. But you have to let us know. You have to tell us what your interests are so that we can help you. If we don't know who you are and you don't talk to us, then that's going to be very difficult. Okay, so be aware of that. So it's okay to not be in the lab, but you want to do something. All right, so your homework is to go download the Research at UWF worksheet. And the worksheet has that first part that we did in this video lecture about list 3 things that you think research would give you that would be good for your career. And then the back part of that worksheet, you have 2 assignments. And one is to go find faculty who do research and find a faculty member who you might be interested in, and you have to write a short biography about them. Don't go crazy, but let me show you an example. Okay, here is the biology's main page, and many of you probably have been on this all the time. If you haven't, be aware that we have a nice newsletter once a semester where you can get lots of activities that are listed. But over here on the left is a link that says faculty and staff, and what you want to do is click on the faculty and staff, and it shows you all of our faculty and staff. Now be aware that some of our staff don't do research. So if you find the saying under here that says assist graduate students with thesis research, that means they do research. And so what you want to do is find, look through the faculty. Maybe you know them because of a class you've had with them. But let's say you're interested again in microbiology. So you know Dr. Lipo is our microbiologist. What I want you to do for homework is to click on the more section, the link here that says more, and it will take you to the faculty webpage. That will tell you things about the faculty member, about what research they do, what they're interested in. It will typically talk about who they are, where they came from maybe. And what I want you to do is kind of give a brief biography of what they do. If you can find out where they got their PhD from, where they did their postdoc from, that would be helpful, but sometimes you can't. For example, here, Dr. Lipo doesn't specify where he does, but he does have his contact information. So you need to write down the contact information for your homework assignment. Okay, and then as part of the homework assignment, let me go back to the PowerPoint real quick. As the homework assignment, I want you to write a very short mock email. Don't send it to the faculty member, but just write one up about how, if you were interested in Dr. Lipo's lab, how would you write the mock email, or how would you write the email? And go back to that slide where I showed you the proper way to write an email and talk about the research. And because this 2-step process is exactly what you would do if you were interested in doing research with a faculty member. So that's essentially your homework. Once you're done with that, you can submit it to the Dropbox via the Dropbox link and submit it again as either a Word document or a PDF. And as I said, if you've had any technical issues with submitting these assignments, please let me know, and I'll try and help you out the best I can. This is due on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. right? So each module, module 3 and 4, are going to be due in the same week. All right, and you'll get some reminder emails about that as well. Don't forget after you watch the video to go take the module number 3 quiz and submit this homework assignment, and then you can move on to module number 4. And starting with module number 4, we're going to start focusing on the in-classroom type of BioSkill talks and things like that. Okay, so as always, email me if you have any issues, questions, problems, and I will see you in the next module.